Yes.
What a welcome.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. Let's hang out more. So,
please.
Yes, wonderful.
Yes,
so
please.
You obviously know both of us, and we are in a pretty unique opportunity to have a very, very similar type of concept we're going to be referring to, but we're covering a variety of where our special levels of passion are. And so we're going to keep it relatively conversational, just so we're not kind of going back and forth too much. But the biggest thing that Emily and I would like to discuss first off is when we're talking about packaging specific services. So you starting your own business, this is something that you have a lot of experience with and you're having to refine every single day. So for the individuals here who may be creating that for themselves, like how do you specifically package those and then best leverage them and communicate it to your potential buyers?
Yeah, so James isn't here. I was going to say he kind of inspired me to reframe what I was going to say in more of a story. So I started my business almost 4 years ago. And for the first 2 years of that, I was really just a freelancer, exchanging my time for money. And a couple things happened. I was extremely overwhelmed with all the things, trying to do everything myself. And I was bored and exhausted and uninspired. And I felt like I had quit my corporate job for a more difficult job. I was the worst boss I had ever had in my life. So what I did, it was almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years this summer. A couple of things which I'll be talking about next, is I reframed or refocused into manufacturing, because that's where I came from, and that's what I had always been and what I had always wanted to do. But when I started my business, I just took whatever came in. You just take whatever falls on your lap. So I refocused into manufacturing, and I got super specific about where in manufacturing I wanted to focus, because I had been watching, a lot of you, Jeff, I think I've been following you for a really long time. There are other industrial marketers out there. I wasn't the only one. And I didn't have the first idea of how to market for a bigger manufacturing company, because I'd never been in that space before. I have no idea, there's so many moving parts and pieces and so many people to deal with and whatever. So I really got granular about, okay, I really like working with the small shops that haven't the first clue about marketing and they really need to be doing it in-house, because everything that they do is custom. And so their stuff constantly looks different. It's always changing. They always have the stories, but they're the ones that are there having the stories. So basically I reworked the entire marketing process, agency marketing process, for those shops to make it more impactful for them, and packaged my services to be extremely simple for them to understand and purchase from me, but also for me to sell to them, because sales and marketing, when you own your own business, you wear all the hats. Or even if you're the marketing person, in one of these small shops, which is what I was my whole career. So I just looked at the whole thing, how can I simplify this as much as humanly possible to make it so simple to actually sell into one of these prospects that I want to work with. So what I did was I took that discovery piece that Jake and Chris talked about and broke that off into its own product. So, and that's what I sell all the time. I don't have to sell any of my other services, because I sell that. And then that leads them into the next thing. So, and at first I was like, marketing agencies do discovery for free. Who's going to pay for this? Nobody's going to pay for this. They do it for free. But it's all about the way you brand that service. So it's not just a discovery session. It's the setup for anything that they want to do in marketing going forward. It's the foundation of everything that they do from now going forward. it's the Adaptix tool, having that in your, in your machine, and knowing that you can put any project in it and make it work going forward. So it's really about how you're selling or how you're framing that and positioning that first piece. And then from there, I have packages. I have 3 packages that I sell customers into, and I try to really stick into those packages. So, and it's taken out all of the like line item, the a la carte, like nickel and diming, like back and forth, like none of that matters. What matters is we're going to get you exactly what you need in this amount of time that we have together. So it just, the variables change. They end up like, as you go through it, the deliverables at the end are different from what you think they are initially, because they always are. That's how marketing happens. But none of that matters because they're paying for a specific, period of time to work with us, and we're just delivering everything that they need to reach this, the goals that they have for themselves. So,
that's solid. So as you're developing this, I'm sure, as we've all done, there's tweaks, there's changes. You get so much feedback.
Yeah.
So how was that process for you, and what was some of maybe the initial feedback that you got as you were developing these buckets in a malleable form?
Just executing the projects. At every project, you run into new challenges that you're like, oh, I need to make sure I communicate that better in the beginning, or, oh, I need to make sure that we outsource that piece because our team's terrible at that, or like, just different things like that, figuring out where our real strengths are and tweaking based on that.
Sure. And then you mentioned something in this earlier segment about kind of niching down, and I know that's something that you had a lot of emotions about. We've all discussed it. We probably experienced it. Fear is attached to that, I'm sure.
Yes.
So in your experience, unpack that for us.
Yeah. I am. I talked last night. I have ADHD. I am curious about everything. I want to know about everything. I love working with small businesses of all walks of life. I've worked with a cattle ranching, a cattle ranch in town here. I worked with a crop insurance agent who's actually still one of my clients, but a retreat center in North Carolina. I worked with all sorts of small businesses, and they're all really fun projects. And when I was thinking about, rebranding and going back into the job shops, I was like, so one of my fears is that I was limiting myself. Like, what am I giving up to, to focus in this area? Like, what potential opportunities am I going to, eliminate myself from by doing this? But it's really had the opposite effect, because I, focusing on these specific things has taken a lot of the uncertainty and the extra work that you have to do to figure out different markets and industries. And so it's taken all that out and allowed me to really focus on the important things, which are, communicating their message and getting their personality out, and helping them, be the best that they want to be, and helping them reframe their mindset to be more of a media company, right? I have to coach my clients, you need to think of yourself as a media company. I know you're a job shop, but you need to be creating content the way you create product, the way you create widgets and whatnot. So that was one thing that was really hard, was the fear of giving up opportunities. The other thing was the market that I'm going after, they're a tough crowd, man. Job shops are, they're notoriously rough around the edges. They think that they know everything a lot of times. And so being, stepping into the spotlight and establishing myself as an authority in that space, is terrifying because like I've never owned a job shop. I've, been the marketing person at a number of job shops and worked with a lot of the owners. But I've never, I'm not a machinist. I'm not a welder. I've run a robotic welder before, and I've pushed the buttons on a machine before, but I'm not that, that's not me. I'm not that, like, I don't have that experience. So that is terrifying as well. But I just have to remind myself the value that I'm bringing to them and be willing to, look like a fool and ask questions. Like I'm not the expert. I say that all the time to them. Like, I am not the expert. You are the expert. I'm here to pull your expertise out of you. So
when you went from this scope to narrowed it down, I'd love to know, and I think we'd all like to hear, how did that directly affect your relationships and your conversations with not only your prospects, but as your customers as well, as you translated them into that? Like, how did that affect the whole dynamic?
So much. So I'll get to how it affected my prospects, but my relationships in my life changed too, because when I was first starting out and taking whatever came in the door, I was seeing every interaction as a sales interaction, which is awkward. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm selling to my friends all the time or plugging my business all the time and whatever. And so now I don't feel like that ever, because I have this super specific thing that I do, and I'm not, if somebody doesn't want to work with me, I'm not going to chase them. Like, it's whatever. I think, Chris and Jake said that in the beginning, like they're either going to work with you or they're not. You can tell pretty quick. So move on if they're not. So yeah, it really helped that whole, everything around any uncomfort that I had or discomfort I had around sales and putting myself out there has really subsided since I did that.
Sure. I can imagine. And then, as we can all relate, a lot of things we do to actual business outcomes.
Yeah.
Are there any specific identifiable, or maybe just a small list of positive outcomes that you've been able to see since making that decision?
Yes, everything. Everything.
So many good results everywhere.
Many results. I mean, everything.
Everything produces results.
Yeah. Well,
I kid you.
Yeah. So, two great examples. I have two prospects right now that I've pitched projects to, and they both asked for references, and I gave Eddie as a reference because I've worked with his company before, and he just the reviews that he gave me were just made me cry. Like, I literally came to tears, like, oh my God, this is insane. But everything that he's saying in these, was so legit and so true for the customer. Like, you're not just getting a marketing service when you work with me, you're getting my audience, and which is small compared to all of you guys, but it's growing, and, and I'm in that space and I'm talking to their potential customers, and that has value in itself. So, in terms of, do you want to know outcomes for me, for my business, or for my customers, or both?
Let's say for the business in general, since we all are running our own little individual businesses in one way, shape, or form, how did it positively affect your business once you, again, narrowed your focus?
Yeah, so much. Everything. It's simplified my world. It's helped me get better at prioritizing what I need to work on and focusing on those specific things. It has helped me charge more for my services, which is something that we talk about a lot with you guys. Like, you have to just go for it. And keep increasing your prices. Like, just keep doing it. You got to keep going.
Go down.
Yep.
It's really hard to go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, don't discount your services ever. Don't discount ever, because then they're always going to be looking for that discount. But when you specialize, when you become the expert in your tiny little niche, whatever it is, you can charge those prices, because the value that you're bringing to them is so much bigger than just working with their, whatever, somebody on Fiverr or their nephew or whatever,
There's value in the cheap nephew, though. Let's keep that
Yes,
there for
there
sure.
is. And I use the cheap nephew. Like
Yeah.
I tell them, like, you should have an intern. You need to have somebody on site who's taking pictures of stuff, asking people questions, getting this content out, because that's the marketing world that we live in. You need people on the ground doing this stuff.